it's related but unrelated, so I'm gonna make this quick. There are 3 ways to raise tax in general funds. This, I don't know how real property taxation would play into the fundamentals of how the village's individual funds work, okay? You can have net new construction, which that is not, just because it's worth more, because it was revalued, doesn't mean that there's anything new that has been constructed. Number 2 is you can ask your constituents in the village, it would be a referendum. In a town, it's a levy exceedance, and the 3rd way is borrow money for it. All of those things are realistically the only 3 ways, aside from special assessments or special charges, that you can collect money as a government. So, using that theory, if the valuation of our hangar owner property went up by 210%, I'm using the number because I don't have it in front of me, it went up significantly. 500,000 to 1,200,000 and some change, right? So that increase theoretically has 0 effect on what if this was real estate. It has 0 effect on what the mill rate is, because the levy is what sets the mill rate. It's the levy amount and the valuation of the property. So if the hangar owner property went up by 200%, and everybody else went up by 60%, we would likely see 150% increase in our hangar owner taxation, because it's the difference between average and where you are. Conversely, if it went up 40%, we would see technically a 20% reduction in that. But until they assign a mill rate, we're all just throwing darts at the wall. That aside, what I will forewarn you about is that if the taxation issue doesn't get resolved before a detachment were approved, the same taxing jurisdiction thing we just talked about becomes our pot to fund. The same thing we talked about 2 meetings ago, October 2nd, I'll take Bonnie's word for it, that when we talked about the surveying costs and creating real property descriptions and that whole thing, that then becomes our cost, our nut to bear, which would be offset potentially by the tax. But using a theory of somewhere $11,000 to $22,000, roughly, I don't think it's going to be 22. My gut says maybe 15. But that 15 is going to be net of the $6,200 we got to pay to do the exact same thing we talked about a meeting ago. So that issue doesn't go away. The stormwater charges go away, the mailing issue goes away, the zoning thing, which is what I was curious about. Had a pervert conversation with one of our residents after the meeting last time about the difference between real estate tax and real property tax, and the difference between a tax parcel and a property tax parcel, because the statute, believe it or not, the legislature may have not put one word in the statute that would help clarify this entire thing when they drafted it, but we simply don't know what the difference between a taxing parcel and a property tax parcel is. A taxing parcel means piece, obviously, but how is that created if we technically the town still owns the land, all that kind of stuff. There's like a million other things that goes into this taxation thing that isn't really going to be solved by a detachment. If we file it, let's say in 2 weeks, I guarantee we don't have the answer to the taxation thing.
When will we get to do that? We should just set.
As soon as they get done with their budget process. So my guess is the 3rd week in November at the latest, because they're still up against the same deadline we are as far as getting all the information to the county getting the tax bills printed, the whole thing.
I just don't want to see us ending up like we did with that whole annexation fiasco, because we spent, correct me if I'm wrong, it was either $183,000 or $186,000 to go through that. And if we do that for an $11,000 or $22,000 tax money coming in, it's not worth it in my book.
But in 10 years' time, that's over $200,000, and the town is, the village has gotten our tax money for 10 years now. And that's money coming to us every year, not just 1 year. And the other thing is that the other annex, the first initial, was for the whole 800 acres. This is just for the town. This isn't for a business, it's not for the farms, and the farms were able to detach, so. I don't know what
there is a,
right.
Yeah, I've got a question kind of along that. I think when it was annexed, the town still collected the tax for 5 years before it went over to the village, if I'm not mistaken. Would that happen again? In other words, after the annexation, we collected the tax, or we got the tax money for 5 years, then it went to the village. Would the village still collect for 5 years? If this goes through, would the village still collect, or is it a different, because it's detachment rather than an annexation?
correct.
So,
Because
Papers are signed and the town starts collecting the money.
so detachment requires approval by both the detaching body and the accepting body, which essentially means that both parties are on board. In an annexation, obviously, the town didn't, I mean, they had a say, but only in the vote system, as far as if the land was gonna be incorporated into the village. So, the argument's sake of, let's say they approve it December 1st. At that point, like, there's a definite line in the sand that as of such date, these parcels are no longer included, and they are included, type of thing. So, you know, I hear what you're saying about spending the 180 grand. I don't think that that's a real fruitful effort at this point, given everything else that we've got pending. Which is why I'm suggesting we just simply follow the statute and put an ad in the newspaper and have a consideration by the town board of if we're gonna approve this. You can definitely, here's the deal. We know going into this year that we had $434 in our savings account, and the rest of it was gonna either be tax-based borrow or go without for our budget. And I can tell you that any money specific to this is not included in what we had anticipated of, you know, check the box of the project to complete in 2024. This doesn't mean we even have to do it tonight to say yes, or November. We can get some information from
I think we
Jonathan.
should wait and see what the mill rate is, because at the end of the day, this becomes a math problem, right? The 6,200, you said it could cost us if this becomes our responsibility to do the parceling or whatever. You know, that's a one-time upfront cost. Whatever legal costs it would be, it's going to be an amortization schedule. You know, the cost, let's just pick a figure, 100,000, but it saves us even conservative 15,000 over X number of years. Eventually, that pays it off. So at the end of the day, it becomes a math problem and how it fits into a budget. So why don't we wait? I mean, we can make some motions. I'm not opposed to that, but the first thing we need to know is the mill rate, right?
It would clear up where our hangar owners are gonna end up.
Maybe we just, unless there's a motion to make where it's not taken into account until we know that or something like that, why don't we wait until we see what that is?
What was your suggestion about the lawyer again?
I think if we were to, I'll say authorize, using that word, authorize someone, doesn't matter who, to contact Jonathan with this paperwork and say, can you give us a ballpark of what legal fees we would incur to draft something similar to this for these parcels? It would be a starting point. You know, one way, shape, or form, we can debate the topic, because at this point I'm making my own cheap estimates of how quickly I believe our attorney would be able to.
I think what I'm hearing, the only thing we should do at this point is let Jonathan look at it, get what you asked for, and come back and revisit.
And I mean, if he's not interested at all, then we've got a really good watermark at the top of this of a firm we can reach out to that did the exact same thing in the exact same town 9 years ago.
So we can make a motion.
Well, does that say we should contact them because they've got experience on this?
I also know how expensive their hourly rate is.
Fair enough.
Who is that? Who is it?
It was Kasdorf, Lewis, and Sweetwood.
Where they at?
I believe in Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay. Sorry,
What is it, 300, 400, 500 an hour?
it's not 5,
But it's
but
at least
it's not.
3.
It's not 2. And I'm not trying to dumb this down, but this is a letter that essentially goes through a whole bunch of whereases and therefores and thou shalt nots type of thing, and we further agrees as far as what the purpose of detachment was. And I think similarly, not specifically, but similarly, because we don't have farmland preservation and all the rest of the thing that the private owners had, but we've got stormwater, zoning, land leases, all the stuff that we can include in there that Jonathan is well aware of at this point, given what's transpired in the last 9, 10 months, whatever. 11.
Yeah, cool.
I would make a motion that the town board authorize legal expenses, because we may end up incurring the legal fee, to have our attorney review how much he's gonna charge us, as ridiculous as that sounds. To authorize contacting the town attorney, requesting a quote to draft a detachment position for the parcels listed, generally known as the airport property. I'm not gonna really list all of those.
Second.
A motion's been made as stated by Supervisor Gieske. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Jonathan,
Okay, next, executive session. The town board may adjourn to executive session. Executive session adjourned to closed session not to reconvene per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paragraph 1, sub G, conferring with legal counsel for governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved. Items to be discussed, conferring with legal counsel regarding summons and complaint filed on 10/2/24, state of Wisconsin, XRL, Winona Bratzett versus Palmyra, Town Board, Frank Sauter, Robin Martins, Josh Gieske.
motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion is made to go into closed session, second, any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.